What up, guys? Welcome to How to Character. I'm your host, the Faulty GM, and today we are answering more questions from the hashtag My 30-Day World Challenge, which is to promote the Dead Man's Guide for Dragon Grin Kickstarter that the Absolute Tabletop Group is doing. I'll leave the link to both of those down in the description below. But all right, we're going to dive straight into this. So the question that we're going to be answering today is, what iconic monsters exist in your world? So a lot of the concepts. Hmm, if you've noticed, if you've watched any or all of these videos that I've been doing, um, you haven't heard me talk about elves or dwarves or orcs or any of those races. You'll hear me talk about like Scythians and Pterodels and things like that. And the reason for that is because um, I don't like the expectations that come with uh, fantasy names. What I mean by that is, if I tell you that you are facing off against a group of orcs, you have a specific expectation as a player, right? Not just as a player, just as a person who has grown up in the world as the world exists, right? We've all seen, or most of us have seen, Lord of the Rings. We've read fantasy novels. We know what to expect from an elf or a dwarf. So if you tell me that there's an elf or a dwarf and they don't act like an elf or a dwarf, sometimes it's interesting, but most of the time it's almost like a betrayal of those expectations, right? Like if you're fighting against orcs and orcs happen to be the good guys, or orcs are, I don't know, like if orcs are not the ugly tusk, pig-like dudes that are big and brawny and want to kill everything and are angry all the time, are they orcs, right? And a lot of people would probably say yes, they're just different in this world. They have a different blah, 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 blah. Like, do orcs have to be stupid? No. Do orcs have to be angry all the time? No. Um, like, those raise a lot of questions. But for me, the best way to get around that entire situation is to just change the name of those things. That way, when you're going into the story, right, what you'll do is you'll draw parallels to this new species to the old ones, right? So, for example, in my world, there are Pterodels. Pterodels are these people, these like beings that are made of like rock, pretty much. They kind of have natural skin, but they eat rocks and stones and gems and ore and all that stuff. They literally eat it, and their body pretty much pushes the metal and the ore and like melts it down and makes it a part of their body. So like as they grow older, they become more and more like heavy with rocks, pretty much. They're really weird creatures, but they dig a lot because that's what they eat. They eat stones and rocks. So all they pretty much do is they dig. They love to dig. Like digging is their favorite thing to do. And so a lot of people will instantly go, "Oh, okay, so these are like dwarfs, right? Or they're maybe like gnomes since they're really small." Um, and that's fair, and that's cool. And you start to kind of create expectations, but your expectations aren't as strong as if I had called them gnomes or had called them dwarves, right? If I had said these are dwarves, but in my world dwarves are made out of rocks, you'll go, "Oh, okay," and you'll still form some kind of uh, connection to it. But Pterodels have other things that set them apart even further, right? Not only are they cowards, right, which automatically sets them apart from dwarves, right? They're cowards. They are quick to flee. They will not fight you if they don't have to. They will run away. If you corner them, however, they have this blowfish thing where they turn into these like they inflate themselves. All the rocks around them kind of get magnetized and glue onto them until they turn into this huge monster beast, and then they black out and they just go into a rage mode and destroy everything around them. Pterodels are somewhat terrifying, in the sense that if you corner one of them, they will lose their shit. Now, this makes them very different and very unique, and because of this, their culture is different than what you would expect for dwarven culture. Yes, they live underground, just like dwarves. Yes, they like mine and build and have forges and stuff and do stuff with metal and all this other goods, but they eat the stuff like they eat the stuff that they are farming for. So almost digging is almost like farming for them. Um, it's just a very different society. So just by changing the name, taking maybe some aspects from dwarves and gnomes, and making it something different, you have a different set of expectations. And now the process of hearing the term Teradel, you want to know what they're about, right? So it's more of a discovery thing than it is a expectation thing. But to answer this question, what iconic monsters exist in your world? Um, my answer would probably be not many. So maybe like dragons, things like very iconic things that I would want. There are definitely no beholders in my world. There's no lithids in my world. Things like that. I'd say, yeah, I think dragons would probably be the one. I think if I had to say that there were any monsters in my world that you could have some kind of expectation of what they would be like, it would probably be dragons. All right, so we're going to answer more questions. This might be like a 10 or 15-minute long video. So we'll see how it goes. Who dominates the political spheres of your world? So the political spheres of my world. So what I understand, I actually had to look this question up just to make sure I was understanding how it works. So when they're saying political spheres, I think I'm taking it as who holds the most influence in the world as a whole, right? International influence, not just influence within their own country, but influence in other people's countries and so on and so forth. At the moment, I think the individuals that would have the most soft power. Um, sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what they're actually called. Um, the fear, sorry, would be the fear. The Fira are pretty much these animal hybrid people. So they have a bunch of different animal parts to them that make up who they are, but they're humanoid-ish. Um, but the Fira, although they are mostly like animals, like they seem like they could take on a bunch of people. They're actually not very violent. They're more merchants and uh, ambassadors and things like that. Um, so they hold the most influence just because that's what they're interested in. They're interested in like banking, they're interested in trading, they're interested in a lot of that stuff. And so a lot of the other races are somewhat tied together through the fear. If you want something that your country can't get, you ask the fear. Uh, if you want, resources and things like that, you ask the fear. Like pretty much they're the traders, right? Like they are the tradesmen in this world. There are other individuals who do trade, but the Fira are like the most well-known traders. If a Fira walks into your town, your first instinct is not necessarily to murder them because they are non-humans. For example, um, in the Empire, when the Immortal Emperor was still alive, some fear were kind of taken as um, slaves, for example, but other fear could actually pay for their freedom, right? And they could get someone to sponsor them as a merchant, as a non-human merchant, and they would have to pay the human a certain amount of money because blah blah blah. It still sucked, but they could actually be merchants. They were the only non-humans who were allowed to sell things, um, or who were allowed to pretty much have a position that was not slavery, right? So in my world, I would say the Führer hold the most political influence, um, as far as like just because like they have the most trading. Since the empire has collapsed, the Führer have taken like a lot of soft control over most of the continent that the humans were on. Simply because if you're not a part of the regency and you were trying to formulate a new form of currency, what you ended up doing is adapting the Fearing currency because that was what you would use to trade with the Fearings when they would come by. So just that alone, meaning that the Fearing banks became very powerful within the human place, and because there's so many races vying for power, they all ended up kind of adopting that currency and like working with the Firan banks and so on and so forth. So the Firans have a lot of economic, political, and just uh, control over those regions, but not again in a militaristic way. They have a lot of soft power. Um, Other races like this, like the Scythians, have direct military power, but don't necessarily control much outside of their own territories, of which they control through occupation. Uh, yeah, so I would say the fears. Anyway, so the last question that we're going to answer today is how safe is it to travel in your world? Depends on where you are. If you are on the continent where the um, if you're pretty much on the imperial continent where the empire kind of fractured and died, probably not safe. Not safe really at all. Like travel between places, travel on the outskirts of towns or cities is not good because what you have is lawlessness. Because there's so many factions, there's so many kingdoms, there's so many nations that are being built up and destroyed and conquered and reconquered and lost and dissolving and falling in a civil war. What you have is a lot of just no places, black marks pretty much on the map where no one controls this region, right? These two countries are fighting for control of this region, so there's no one there. You have a lot of people who are leaving the military of one country to side with another. You have a lot of mercenaries. You have a lot of bandits. Um, you just have a lot of like just war that's happening. You might be walking to go from one town to another and end up in the middle of a battlefield. So in this aspect, it's actually really dangerous to travel. It's especially dangerous to travel um, road like roads that aren't known. So, like I said, there's a lot of nations that are being built up and collapsing like within years. This nation became a big thing and then it was instantly conquered by another one, split in half by that nation being conquered by another one. So you have roads that are being built to cities that no longer exist now. And the mapping of those roads alone is a really big deal because if you're going from one city to the next and you happen to take the wrong road, you'll end up in a place that might be a new bandit camp or that might not actually exist anymore, or that has been overgrown, or so on and so forth. So it's very important to know which roads you're traveling on, which are the new roads that actually go somewhere, and which are the old roads that don't lead anywhere. So almost traveling is a maze of sorts, and having the best up to date map is crucial in this world. Having a map that's even like a few weeks out of date could be a life or death situation. So how safe is it to travel in this world? Pretty unsafe, for the most part, depending on what map you have. So let's see, we have a few more minutes. So I will do one more question. What mythical material is valued in your world? So the most precious material in the entire world is mana. Um, and that might sound like, oh yeah, magic, but in this world, there's a difference between magic and mana, right? Magic is the pure stuff that's in the air. Magical energy exists everywhere. It's inside you. It's in the rocks. It's in stuff. Everything is made up of magic. Mana is magic solidified, right? It is liquefied magic, the pure stuff. Now, mana has grades, right? If you pull magic from a rock, for example, you get other stuff than just magic. The magic has been filtered through that rock and is not pure. That mana is probably not that great. You'll get it and you won't get as much out of it as you want. But there's a process of which you take, if you filter it into a what they call catalyst crystal. The catalyst crystal will filter all the extra stuff out of the magic. So when it flows into the catalyst crystal, and then you pull that magic from the catalyst crystal out, it'll be purified mana, perfect mana. So a lot of people have found ways to take that perfect mana, put it back in the catalyst crystals, and turn them into what they call mana stones. These things are extremely valuable, and these are what power magisters. These are pretty much like magical batteries. They're so full of condensed magic that if one person got a hold of one of them and could use magic, they could almost do anything with it until the mana ran out. So mana, like liquefied mana, is extremely valuable. Catalyst crystals, extremely valuable, and mana stones, extremely valuable. These things are probably the most crucial and valuable items in the entire world. But that'll be it for this video. Um, Talk to you guys later. Oh, before I do that, yeah. So check the link down in the below. If you guys want to answer any of the questions that I went over today, please leave your things down below. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Okay, now we're good. This has been Out of Character. See ya.